Hey, yo, did you see that? They just dropped that big fella, man. Stay tuned to this video. I'm going to tell you what they did wrong, what they did right, at the time that it happened to me, and how to avoid it for yourself. Stay tuned. I got you. So yeah, man, they dropped that guy. I'll tell you, the first things that they did that was right was that they used all straps. From what you could see, the legs, the hips, and the torso are strapped in. The next thing that they did right is that they did not try to break the guy's fall. For example, the natural instinct of a person who's a healthcare provider, and this has happened to me, is that basically you try to, when you see this person falling, your instinct is to catch them. You don't want them to hurt themselves. But then by doing that, you're going to end up hurting your back. So what they did correctly was that they just let the guy fall. The lady, she grabbed her head and was like, oh my God, and then went back to him. So in essence, although it's not the ideal situation for the patient, you would like to brace their fall, but it's best for you. So scene safety BSI is made for you to take care of yourself first. So even though the scene was safe, you should still continue to take care of yourself. Whereas I'd rather have the patient fall. I'd rather have the patient not fall at all. But if someone's going to get hurt, I'd rather have the patient get hurt than myself, especially with a career-ending injury like a back pain or a back injury that could leave you even paralyzed, because that guy was a big fella and they were much smaller than him. So that's the good part that they did. Once again, they put all the straps, and once the person was falling, they let them fall instead of breaking their back to try to avoid the fall. Now, going into what they did wrong, was where their hand placement was. Here they are with a power stretcher that was too high up. It was too high, and they had a regular van ambulance. It wasn't like one of those box ambulances where you need like a higher up stretcher, where, as you can see from the picture right here, it's a power stretcher that has the ability to go up and down remotely. So from what I see, for the patient's weight, for the amount of strength that they potentially had, and the vehicle that they were driving, the stretcher was way too high. They should have lowered it a little bit more, especially if they didn't have to do it manually. It was done with the power stretcher. From what it looks like, it looks to me like a power stretcher. So the bad part about it was that the area of the body that's the heaviest only had one hand on it. So the legs, the EMT at the bottom had both hands on the stretcher, which was good, but the EMT, which was controlling the heaviest part of the body, only had one distracted hand on it. Like, she looked distracted. So when you've seen these videos that I posted, I always mention the torso is the heaviest part of the body. From the waist to the neck, that's where the majority of a person's weight is. So that area, especially with a heavier patient, should have two hands on it. And while you're holding this person, you should not have anything distracting you, whether it's an oxygen bag, whether it's your phone, a headphone, or whatever. So she was obviously distracted. So distracted that she forgot to notice, or did not notice, that there was a crease on the floor. It was the crease on the ER bay that hit the wheel, and the inertia from the patient's weight made him fall. The momentum from the patient's weight made him fall. And if you look at the guy, he's got his arms crossed. He's got a baseball cap on. He looks pretty comfortable. It looks to me like he should have been walking. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he didn't look to be in any distress. So my people, whenever you get the chance, it's a case-by-case basis. But if you have a patient who's overweight, if you have that same patient who's able to walk, and it's not going to hinder the current situation. If you're going to do no harm by making them walk, then by all means, make them walk. I don't care if you work inter-facility transports or you work in the 911 system. Now, in the IFTs, inter-facility transport, they want you to put them on the stretcher even though they could walk so they could bill the patient. But if you're at the point where you're going to end up hurting yourself, then make that motherfucker walk. Now, your company, your job, you proceed as you want. But I've worked IFTs and I put these patients on the stretcher because I'm able to handle it. But if you're in a situation where you have to choose between your job or your back, then choose your back, especially if the patient's able to walk. Now, if you're not able to handle it, which in this case, it looks like they could, but if for some reason you can't, then by all means, call for backup. Like, he was in no distress. They were apparently doing an ER discharge because they weren't coming into the ER. They were leaving the ER. So they should have just called for backup or asked for help from someone else who was in the area or another ambulance company. So that's another thing they did wrong. They didn't realize the crease on the floor. The hand placement was wrong. The person should have walked. They apparently were distracted. The stretcher was too high. And on top of that, again, it was a power stretcher. And something similar to this happened to me in the Bronx. I posted a video about it recently, or not too long ago, where basically we were coming out of a project building and the EMT and the paramedic who were holding the stretcher, they were distracted as well. They had the response bag on this side and there was an overweight patient. They didn't have all hands on the stretcher. We hit the project building and the project building had, at 3 in the morning, bad lighting and you couldn't see the floor, and they hit the crease, and the patient had a much worse outcome than this patient because he looked like he caught his fall with his hand. But this person, the one I'm talking about, was a job that I was on. She hit her head and we had to take her to the nearest trauma center because not only did she hit her head, she was overweight, she had comorbidities and was on blood thinners, as you could imagine, from having chronic history of diseases. And that was not a good look for her. It didn't end up too good. Let's just say that. Now, how to avoid it? This is simple. Call for backup. Keep your hands on the stretchers. Be mindful. Basically, be mindful. Think about all the things, like be optimistic, but be realistic. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. If for some reason you're stuck with a patient that's overweight, if for some reason you need backup, then by all means, call for backup. The next thing you need to do is be mindful. If you're going to be walking with this person, you need to be extra careful. You should be careful with the person who weighs 100 pounds and also the person that weighs 500 pounds. Every patient should be treated the same, with respect, with patient advocacy in mind, but also be conscious and have common sense to know that if you're transporting a patient who's so heavy, you need to be taking your time. For example, if I'm with a heavy patient and I'm going downhill, I'm walking backwards while bracing the stretcher like so, right? And it takes me to this other thing where I would like to insert to avoid it. Keep yourself healthy. Keep yourself strong. The barrier to entry into an EMS job is 0 to none pretty much. You just got to have the EMT course, your driver's license, and that's it. And then your physical ability is evaluated at the beginning, but not thereafter. But you need to take care of yourself. And that's why I always insist that people eat right, do right, and take care of themselves. That way, if you do have an issue, your body's much more resilient and you won't hurt yourself or be decommissioned. So guys, again, be careful, be mindful. This was documented and this has been going on for years. It's just that now there was a camera and people shared it. But this goes on a regular basis. All right, guys, I hope this helps. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below, like, subscribe. And if you know somebody who could benefit from this video, then feel free to share it with them. I hope this helps. Peace.